Darwin in Lancashire, and a frantic phone call to police.
Hello, Lancashire Police.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Mrs. Wade. I'd like to report a missing person.
When it turned to weeks and none of us heard anything, it got a bit scary then.
Okay, and who's missing, please?
My daughter, Susan Ann Waring.
And how long has she been missing for?
3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yes.
Well, who saw her at least 3 weeks ago?
I don't know his second name, it's just Alan.
I'm like, who the hell's Alan?
Alan, Susan's one-time lover, knows nothing.
I woke up at 10 o'clock the next morning, she'd gone. I remember him kissing me, when you're asleep.
A family is frantic.
Where is she? Where is Susan?
Someone is reported missing every 90 seconds in the UK. But the majority of people are found in the first 48 hours. Detective Inspector Lukman Muller has overseen many missing persons investigations in his 20-year career.
Lancashire Constabulary found out about Susan being missing when her mother, Linda, contacted the Force Control Room on the 5th of February. She had concerns because the family hadn't heard from Susan or seen her for a number of weeks.
When did you last see her?
Nobody said her for at least 3 weeks, and I can't remember the last time I seen her. I haven't heard from her at all. She hasn't been on Facebook or anything.
So it was East Division that looks after Darwin, where Susan was living, and they started a missing persons investigation.
Susan's story starts like so many others, with her family.
Ended New Year's Eve out, weren't it?
I'd open it, both of them.
It was about 2 o'clock in the morning.
In my family, there's me, Karen, Lynn and Susan. We was all close.
It's like any other sisters or brothers, isn't it? You get along when you want to, and when you don't, we'd fight, we'd be close. She'd be naughty, always mischievous, but there was always a fun side to her as well. It's sisters, normal sisters.
We're always play fighting. She was fantastic. She's just like, yeah, really fantastic.
In the mid-1980s, Susan's parents take the decision to move their daughter from a mainstream to a special school, when it becomes apparent that Susan has learning difficulties.
I'd have been the age of 12 when I noticed something different about her. She'd act like someone younger than her years.
I don't know what her total difficulties were. I know she had learning disabilities. Susan was always one of us, no matter what. She always knew we were there if she needed us.
When we spoke to family to understand a little bit of background around Susan, we found that actually, even though she was an adult, actually she is quite vulnerable and she would struggle to sort of operate independently. There was the physical element. She was partially sighted. She wasn't really that mobile. She had a number of physical ailments. She was quite slight and had an unhealthily low BMI. Historically, she did have substance misuse issues.
In her 20s, she had issues with drug use.
I can't say what drug she was taking at the time, but I certainly know she was smoking cannabis. She just wasn't looking after herself. She was always in bed, or they was in bed all day, but then up all night.
Psychologist Donna Youngs has been interpreting behaviour patterns and informing investigations for 20 years.
Once Susan became involved with drugs and alcohol, this would have separated her off from her family because suddenly there was something in her life that mattered more, something that brought her into contact with a group of people that her family wouldn't have known, upon whom she was dependent. And it's something that, when she took the substances, turned her into a different person, a Susan that the family might not have recognised.
Usually with families, you know everything, and this is a bit different. We've all got different lifestyles, And obviously you don't want to be hanging about with someone who is in that lifestyle when it's not yours.
It is difficult because I'm not into drugs. All I could do is, when I saw Susan, would be to try and have a normal conversation, which she was pretty good at.
Now armed with a better understanding of Susan's background and vulnerabilities, Detective Inspector Muller and the team must work quickly to locate the 45-year-old.
They'd be checking custody suites, hospitals, homeless shelters, those kind of inquiries.
It started to become worrying when the police were coming around for statements. It felt really real. We're like, where is she?
They came up to Mum's to obviously get description of her, any markings on her, obviously tattoos, so they could obviously search for her. It got a bit scary then.
When initial searches gleaned no results, police turned their attention to Susan's recent partner, Alan.
The team knew that she was living with somebody called Alan above a butty shop, as her mum had described it.
Somebody said she was staying with somebody called Alan. I don't know his second name, it's just Alan.
It's a new relationship that Susan has kept largely hidden from her family.
He was called Alan Edwards. I didn't know him, never met him. I only heard about the new relationship through my brother.
I found out when I saw Susan's ex-boyfriend. When I said to him, I said, how's Susan? And he just said to me, I don't know, she's not living at mine anymore, she's living at Alan's. I'm like, who the hell's Alan? I didn't know where this Alan lived. I'd never met him, don't know anything about him. So I messaged her on Facebook. I just said, Susan, what are you doing? Who's Alan?
With police investigating the disappearance of 45-year-old Susan Waring, attention has turned to her current boyfriend, Alan Edwards.
Susan said to me on Facebook, she said, Pete, he's a nice guy and I want you to meet him.
Susan would always seem loved up the minute she entered a relationship, and it was love, simple as. She always wanted to be loved.
I looked at his picture and I just instantly thought, why does he want somebody like Susan? He looked like a bodybuilder. He looked quite a chunky guy. He could have anyone, but why Susan?
For Donna Youngs, Susan's relationship with Alan is one of high dependency.
Susan is someone who needs authority, who needs instruction. Without it, she is lost. Alan is the polar opposite of Susan, and what she lacks in the ability to function in the world, he provides.
Susan's family are worried about what else Alan Edwards is providing Susan.
I got a bit concerned when her ex-boyfriend was telling me about this guy, things he's heard, that he was into really hard drugs and that he was violent.
When I saw that picture, he looked trouble, and I didn't like the look of him.
I sent Susan loads and loads of messages, and eventually she did reply, and she's pretty much told me to ignore her ex. This guy is the one.
There's no getting Susan away from Alan. Their relationship continues for another 2 months before her disappearance. Her family have their doubts about Alan immediately.
I told Karen and my mum that I didn't trust him.
I was quite suspicious from the start of Alan.
It would have been incredibly easy for Alan to take control of Susan once they met. Susan is somebody who's very accepting and trusting. She's somebody who needs protection and direction and is looking for that. So she's somebody who's incredibly needy, and Alan's personality would have meant he would have found it very easy to take control.
During their investigation, police learned that in December 2018, just a month into their relationship, Susan had moved in with her new partner.
During the missing persons investigation, it's a reasonable line of inquiry. Go and speak to the last person that's seen the missing person. And so we'd visited Mr. Alan Edwards. There's some body-worn video from one of the response officers.
Who's the mess?
Don't worry about it.
More harder than it used to be.
Yeah. I'll try not to fall over.
Yeah. Just been going through all seeing what Susie's been wearing.
What she's been wearing?
Yeah, what she's got, obviously.
Right.
I've got most of the clothes there.
It's only later on when we reviewed that body worn video, I could see how he's shuffling around, making himself small, hat, big jacket, so he looks smaller. And then the photograph that we've subsequently got from social media, that's what he actually looks like, where you can see that he's quite a well-built individual. And so it was amazing how he could change the way he presented just by the way he dressed and the way he conducted himself.
Are you looking around at this address already?
Yeah. Couple.
Yeah. No, actually, just a quick sweep while I'm here, so I know she's not here.
Yeah,
There's enough hand space, isn't there?
Yeah, the probably not full, though.
He was engaging, he was polite, he was friendly, and there was no reason to disbelieve him at the time.
If anything else comes to mind that you can help us with, just let us know. We'll just carry on, obviously. Go on.
The top, she was wearing a top.
Yeah.
It's, a blue woolly top, I think.
Blue woolly top, yeah.
Find it in here. It's got some writing on it, 55, I know 55.
55, blue woolly. Right, is that when you last saw her?
There's something else yet. No, that's what I think she's wearing.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Because I was asleep when she went.
With no leads from Alan, a national media appeal is launched, as investigators become increasingly concerned for Susan's safety.
There was a number of press appeals, and well-intentioned members of the public came across, and we got a number of sightings, and some were focused around Dumbarton in Scotland, and so that sort of shifted the focus to Scotland.
D.I. Muller finds out that Susan had lived in Scotland for 10 years before moving back to Darwin in 2018.
Susan moved to Scotland in round about 2007, I think. That's where I did lose contact with her.
We did stay in touch over phone and then Facebook.
My mum would tell me that Susan would ring, stuff like that, tell me what she was getting up to. She obviously met a new partner.
But when her partner dies suddenly, it leaves Susan incredibly vulnerable and more than 200 miles away from her family. Detective Inspector Muller discovers that during this time, Susan becomes the victim of a sinister crime known as cuckooing.
Cuckooing is when a group of criminals take over the house of a vulnerable individual and use it for possibly the purposes of manufacturing or selling drugs, for example, from that vulnerable individual's home.
She had some substance misuse issues. Because of those vulnerabilities, people were using the address to take drugs, to drink alcohol.
The drug dealers would have recognised Susan as easy prey.
D.I. Muller learns that Susan spent some time in rehab.
Susan got life on track. She went into inpatient care for rehabilitation. She was addiction-free, and she came back to her home in Dumbarton.
But her fresh start does not go down well with the criminal gangs.
When the drug addicts wanted to come and drink or take drugs at her address, she said no. They took umbrage to it. She was barricaded in the address, and they set fire to the address.
Incredibly, Susan survives the blaze. Her family rushed to be with her in hospital.
It was horrible. It was horrible seeing her just lying there lifeless with tubes in her throat.
That's when we knew we needed to look after her. So that's when we decided that she needed to move back down here.
She initially moved back in with her mother, and then the family had rallied together and got this flat and furnished it, decorated it, and set Susan up with a fresh start.
It's not the fresh start her family hoped for. Susan is with a new man and is taking drugs again.
It was difficult. I spoke to her about it, and she just denied she was.
She rang me up to let me know about this new relationship, and we all voiced our concern, saying we wasn't happy about it. But she still went on and did her own thing, as always.
I think what it were with Susan, she needed company. That's what I think I think it was. She just needed somebody's company. She got bored on her own.
With Susan now missing for 5 weeks, proof of life inquiries are yielding no results. Hopes of finding her alive are diminishing.
We tried to follow up some sightings and try to corroborate them by financial or CCTV. And so that started negating the sightings up in Scotland. Financially, Susan had a pattern that she would normally withdraw money in cash and then spend the cash, but those regular withdrawals at the key ATMs in Darwin, those stopped as well. We were able to look at telephone records, and what became apparent was phone usage died. Susan was an avid Facebook user, and again, Facebook usage decreased and it became non-existent.
Her Facebook was just not being used. There was nothing being posted. There was always something on her Facebook, but there was nothing.
There may be nothing from Susan, but Alan's social media updates are a red flag for Peter.
Alan did write on her Facebook, "Come home, Susie." I had suspicions he did that to deflect whatever from himself.
With no leads on Susan's digital footprint, D.I. Muller returns to her partner, Alan Edwards. He also has some suspicions.
What I was looking for was patterns and anomalies, or lack of patterns, or changes of behaviour. And so when we reviewed that body-worn video and then reviewed the different accounts that Mr. Edwards provided to different officers over the time period, that those anomalies started to be highlighted and sort of raised concerns around his honesty. There was a couple of really odd sort of comments that he made, or odd behaviour. He sent photographs of Susan with injuries to her sister. We don't know if it was by accident or intentional, but when the officer spoke to him about it, he really struggled to answer those.
Basically, did you send a photo to her sister last night?
Yeah.
Of some injuries that she had? Where did you get...
The photographs, I got them off her phone, but they're not on it. I can't understand how it's gone because Susie deleted them. She won't let me have the photographs.
Whereas other things he was able to answer very confidently. And so again, spider senses tingling.
So she's took the photographs, then you've managed to...
I managed to get them, but I don't know.
How did you get them onto your phone?
I don't know.
Right.
I did it with Bluetooth. I tried Bluetooth, but she caught me doing it. She caught me doing it, you see. Right. But I don't know how it's gone there, I don't know.
Okay.
So did you mean to send them last night?
Yes.
Yeah. On purpose.
Why did you send it to her sister? Was it just to what? I don't know.
What it were on about?
There was no reason for some of those inconsistencies with Mr. Edwards' account, which then sort of focused a little bit more weight on Susan having come to harm.
After 10 weeks of investigating the disappearance of Susan Waring, D.I. Muller and the team are convinced they are no longer dealing with a missing person inquiry.
So at the end of March, I compiled all of those anomalies and all those patterns together, presented them to the investigating officer, and he called a nobody homicide investigation.
That was scary. Yeah, that was the scariest bit.
With no digital evidence of Susan being alive, the homicide investigation can now begin.
And Karen rung me and said they've upgraded it to a murder inquiry. And I'm like, what?
Alan Edwards is now a key suspect in the murder inquiry.
The first action was to go and arrest Mr. Edwards and search the flat. They arrested him, and initially he was appearing to be sort of shell-shocked.
The reason why you're here, you've been obviously arrested on suspicion of Susan's murder, so without further ado really, the main question is, are you responsible for the murder of Susan Waring?
I'm not, no.
Police have just 3 days in which to charge Edwards before they'll be forced to release him.
And next morning, I woke up at 10 o'clock the next morning, till dawn. But I remember the kissing me, you know, when you're asleep, but they're awake.
We described it a bit, Mills and Boons, this kiss on the cheek whilst he's falling asleep and then disappearing off into the sunset. It was just out of character, out of pattern for Susan to do so.
Someone just doesn't go without saying anything to anyone.
I didn't believe that for a second. Susan wouldn't just walk off. Susan couldn't just walk off.
It's now 10 weeks since 45-year-old Susan Waring was reported missing. Her partner Alan Edwards, who denies any involvement, has been arrested on suspicion of her murder. Detective Inspector Muller and the team discover some disturbing details about Susan's condition in the days before her disappearance.
On the 17th of January, Susan had attended her GP surgery with significant facial injuries. She'd attended on her own. She was waiting in the waiting room. She was distressed to the extent that the receptionist took her to a side room and asked her if she was okay. We don't actually know at what point Susan had left the surgery. There was no CCTV that we could recover. But we do know that in the afternoon, late afternoon, she did return, and she returned with Mr. Edwards. She was examined by the general practitioner. The doctor gave us an account, and we obviously subsequently got her medical records. And she had significant facial injuries. He suspected facial fractures, and she had some fluid seeping from her ear as well. The account provided by the doctor was that Mr. Edwards said that Susan had been jumped by some girls.
But in his interview with police, Edwards claims that this was Susan's explanation.
Were you involved in that consultation at all? Did he speak to you, or did you offer any input into it? Did you talk at all? What does she tell the doctor about her injury?
She's been fighting for girls in Oxford.
Right.
They made the excuse that Susan got into a fight, which wasn't Susan.
Do you know if she's suffered any further injuries other than the ones that she's gone to the doctors with?
She hasn't, not my knowledge, not my knowledge.
During that 2-week period?
No.
Have you assaulted her during that 2 weeks?
I would not assault her.
Having heard the rumours about Edwards, Peter thinks otherwise.
It was pretty obvious that Alan had inflicted those injuries to Susan.
Susan's injuries are so severe that the GP advises her to go to A&E for further treatment.
He was advising her to go to hospital, and I will ask the doctor, as I say, yeah, go on, someone tell her that she won't listen to me.
We know Susan didn't attend A&E.
Talk to us about what happens after that doctor's appointment. Where did you go? How did you get home?
We'll go home.
How did you get back?
I don't know.
Officers trawl through CCTV footage from cameras across Darwin, desperately looking for Susan. DI Muller receives news of another possible sighting of Susan 12 days after the GP appointment.
So we managed to get the CCTV footage from the local supermarket, but it was quite poor quality. So it was difficult for us, who had never met Susan, to positively identify Susan. So we showed that footage to friends and family, and we got mixed results. Some people said it was Susan, some people didn't.
Can Edwards identify the person in the footage?
When that footage was shown to Mr. Edwards, there was an unusual reaction.
We've got some CCTV back from Asda, and as per the disclosure, it shows you, or a male, we believe to be you, in that shot with a female. Who's that female going to be?
No comment.
Is that going to be Susie?
No comment.
If it's not Susie, who is it?
No comment.
His body language, those non-verbal communications sort of give away when he's not happy. The top half was still quite stable and relatively calm, but his leg was going. It was moving very, very quickly.
So she's looking down one of the aisles. Who's that?
Susie.
Is that Susie? Who's that?
It's me.
Ah. Where is her clothing now? That clothing to prove that that's Susie.
That was on the coat.
Yeah.
It was on the pictures of Susie with that eye, with that black eye, on the back of my door in the living room.
So you're saying that's the coat that's on the back of the door in that picture where she's got that injury?
Yeah.
Police are now convinced that Edwards knows more, but he continues to evade detectives who are running out of time to charge him.
He was more intelligent than his academic credentials would show. And he changed with the interviewing officers very, very quickly.
Can I just ask you, if you don't mind?
I don't mind.
I know that...
And so we felt that he was quite manipulative. We've interviewed him on a number of occasions over a 3-day period. Initially, he spoke. However, when the questions started to get tricky, he went into no comment mode.
I'll give you 2 statements. I'll give you detailed. I haven't killed nobody, I haven't done anything to Susie, and I'm not answering no more of your questions. Right.
This is somebody who is used to being strategic, somebody who is used to convincing people of things. We see Alan here assuming that he can take charge of the situation, he can make people believe what's happened to Susan.
Without a confession, detectives must now race against the clock to find the crucial evidence to charge Edwards. But searching his flat won't be easy.
We sort of described it as a bit of a hoarder's paradise. It was a 1-bedroom flat, which was on the first floor. The staircase just had lots of items strewn all over it, so it was almost like an obstacle course just to get to the flat, just to enter it. There wasn't a single working light bulb in the address. We had to first empty everything out systematically, peeling back all the different layers to then give us access to forensically examine everything.
Investigators are looking for evidence that Susan was murdered in the property.
It was a very thorough search. We took the plumbing apart and took some of the floorboards up. It was a very intrusive search and very thorough search, but it took a long period of time.
The police told us they were searching out Alan's flat, and we didn't really know if they found anything. All we kept getting was, there's nothing.
After a painstaking search, investigators make an interesting discovery.
I'd originally attended the address really early on in March when I'd gone to review the investigation. And so from that point to the arrest, Mr. Edwards had redecorated. The flat hadn't been decorated or worked on or even cleaned for a significant period of time. Wallpaper had been put up, walls had been painted.
Can forensics explain Edwards' unusual decision to redecorate in the weeks after Susan's disappearance?
Behind the paint, the scientists found blood. Then we found some blood on the sofa, really small amounts, but which could be explained by a nosebleed or something more sinister. We found some blood on the stairs going down, on the side of the walls of the stairs, on a flag that was in front of the door, and then on the glass pane in the front door. We found Susan's glasses as well, with a spot of blood on them. When we subsequently analysed that blood, it came back to Susan, so the DNA profile was Susan's.
But is it enough to prove Susan was murdered in the flat?
So we could say some of the blood was consistent with being assaulted, but we couldn't say the severity of the assault.
Another significant finding inside the flat provides some disturbing evidence about the violence Edwards directed at Susan.
What we also found was a mask. I would describe the mask as like a Halloween type mask. It was a full face covering, so it wasn't just one with a band that you held in front, it was one that you pulled fully over your head and face. When it was taken into the lab and analysed properly, there was over 150 spots of blood. When we analysed it, it came back as a match for Susan's DNA. On the inside of the mask, we had Alan Edwards' DNA. So it had been worn by Alan Edwards at some point, and we know it'd been close to Susan wearing. And so the explanation that the scientists gave was that Susan's mouth and nose was probably covered in blood, and she was breathing quite heavily, and that's why it's such real fine particles of blood on their mask.
An image forever imprinted in the minds of Susan's family, who would later learn about the mask.
I actually have visions of seeing him in that mask hitting Susan. That's really odd. He's worn that while he was killing her, while he was hitting her.
Forensic psychologist Donna Youngs, who has spent her career analysing the behaviour of individuals under investigation, offers an insight into Edwards' personality.
Alan would have enjoyed seeing Susan suffer, and Susan would have responded very much in a very childlike manner to this. She will have been confused and upset, but in some ways accepting it as if she deserved the punishment. With every episode of cruel, punitive violence, that Susan undergoes, she loses value in Alan's eyes until, in the end, it matters not to him whether she lives or dies.
With no body and only circumstantial evidence found at Edward's flat, D.I. Muller now faces a difficult decision.
Even with all this blood that we found individually, it still wasn't enough to show that it was a significant attack site or a dismemberment site or a disposal site. And ultimately, we still didn't find Susan's body. We still had Alan Edwards in custody. And the maximum we can hold somebody for is 96 hours. And we got to that stage where we felt we're not going to be able to charge him because the evidence wasn't there at that moment in time. And so there were some really difficult conversations, and it felt really uncomfortable of releasing someone we suspected of murder back out into the community on bail. Lots of sleepless nights.
On March 23rd, 2019, Alan Edwards is released on bail.
To mitigate some of the risk, we put together a safeguarding team. We were monitoring any relationships that he was sort of developing.
One unavoidable risk is the chance of Susan's family seeing her suspected murderer walking the streets.
Darwin's a really small community, so it was highly unlikely for Susan's family not to come across Alan Edwards.
I think it was the same night he got released, and I was going to the shop and I actually saw Alan walking down back to the flat. That was a surprise. I just sat there in the car and watched him, and then I went to the shop and went home. I couldn't, because I could imagine myself getting a bit angry. How do I know he's not just killed my sister?
With no proof, Susan's killer appears to have got away with it. But Edward's past is catching up with him as D.I. Muller discovers he has a history of violence.
At that point of releasing him, we decided to change sort of tack, really, and say, well, let's try to understand a little bit more about Mr. Alan Edwards. And this is what led to the historic investigations. Although we didn't have any significant convictions for domestic abuse, we found there were different reports, many of which had never gone to court, or if they'd gone to court, the cases had collapsed or been withdrawn. So we started a process of locating all his previous partners and taking accounts from them. What we found were disclosures of horrific violence. Some of them were so scared of him. One lady had sort of changed her name. What we found was a pattern of behaviour. So initially, when he was in that process of wooing these ladies, he would be very charming, very attentive, lots of gifts, and the perfect partner. But then once in that relationship, he turned very, very quickly. We found some similarities, attending medical appointments, like he attended the GP surgery with Susan. He did that in a similar way with previous partners. Another previous partner, we conducted a video interview with her. The first 2 hours of the video interview was just her crying.
As an individual, Alan has two clear components to his character. One is this very pronounced need to be respected, to be an authority figure, to be dominant. And the other is a sadistic, punitive proclivity for punishment. And these two come together in his personal relationships.
That process showed a pattern of behaviour, which was then replicated in what Alan Edwards did with Susan. And so that was really key there.
But without Susan's body, D.I. Muller knows it will be a difficult case to prove in court.
We still had those hypotheses that, Susan has gone and reinvented herself and got a new identity and is living life somewhere else, or she's suffered a medical episode and we just haven't found her body. So we had to show that there's no proof of life for Susan.
It's an enormous undertaking for the team of investigators who spend the next year building a case against Alan Edwards.
A no-body murder investigation is amount of data-wise, it's probably about 10 times an average homicide investigation. We had to contact every single council, all the NHS trusts, GP surgeries, specific charities that deal with homelessness. So we took 2014 statements that we used as evidence to show that there was no evidence that Susan was alive.
It's an agonising wait for Susan's family, knowing her killer remains free.
We kept speaking to the police and they kept telling us there were no updates. Absolutely no updates at all. Every time we spoke to them, they was telling us there's nothing.
With 45-year-old Susan Waring still missing, her accused killer Alan Edwards is still walking free. But after more than 12 months of building evidence to prove that Susan Waring is no longer alive, her family finally had some news.
With all those inquiries conducted, in the summer of 2020, we presented the case to CPS and why we felt Susan was murdered and Alan Edwards was responsible for the murder, and they authorised charges. So at that point, we went and rearrested Mr. Edwards.
I got a phone call off the police telling us that they was going to rearrest Alan and that they was going to charge him with the murder. I'm like, wow. They've gone from nothing to charging him.
The arrest comes as a surprise to Edwards too.
At the arrest point, I don't think he thought we were going to charge him, and it took him by a bit of surprise. But the overwhelming feeling for myself and the team was relief. He's remanded, the public is safe.
It was great knowing the fact that he was in prison, he was on remand. So that was satisfying, but it was hard waiting for that trial to start.
Two years after she was first reported missing, the trial for the murder of Susan Waring begins. Alan Edwards pleads not guilty. D.I. Muller knows there is a very real risk that her killer could once again walk free.
Proving a no-body homicide is really difficult. Mr. Edwards had a very, very good defence team. It's highly unusual to have a case with just so much data. You know, over 2,000 statements were obtained as used material. So we had all the forensic statements and all the search records to show that there's no evidence that Susan was alive. At one point, we were looking at over 500 witnesses.
For some witnesses, it would be the first time that they'd speak out against the abuses they'd suffered at the hands of Edwards.
The 4 historic victims that did provide accounts, that did go to court, were amazing. And some of them found it quite a cathartic process.
Alan preyed on vulnerable women. It seems like all these women are under his control. So much so that I think they were scared about being in court. They were scared about seeing him.
I was really concerned, not just about the quality of evidence that they give, but there's a humanity element of there's a person behind that, and yeah, I want them to come up to proof in giving evidence, but what's the toll on them? What's the impact on their mental well-being and their physical well-being going to be after doing this?
An emotional toll too for Susan's family, seeing Edwards in court.
Taking the stand was a bit difficult, but I had to do it for Susan. It wasn't easy. When Alan took the stand, he was cocky, really, really cocky. It was just acting like he's done nothing wrong. You could see that he didn't care. It was all a joke to him.
After a 13-week trial, the jury went out to deliberate. What would the verdict be?
A no-body murder is pretty rare, and to prosecute is really rare. We felt the jury would go out for quite some time, but they were out for less than 90 minutes, which was a real surprise. And then sometimes that's a worry. Is that going to come back as a not guilty?
But D.I. Muller needn't have worried, because Alan Edwards is found guilty and convicted of the murder of Susan Waring. The 48-year-old is also convicted of offences against 4 other women, including causing grievous bodily harm, assault, and making threats to kill. He is ordered to serve a minimum of 27 years.
was just, made it all worthwhile, because, it was just that relief for the family there. I was in the room with them when the verdict came back.
Oh, it was a massive relief. We were just sat there and it felt like it felt so draining. It was over.
But it's not over. Justice may have been served, but the question remains, where is Susan?
The looking has never stopped. Even now, I'll drive home and I'll think, is she in there? Is she there? Is she? And that's difficult.
3 years on, D.I. Muller continues to investigate. In search of the answer, he's arranged to visit Edwards.
I'm going to HMP Wakefield to meet Mr. Alan Edwards. Susan's body's still missing, and so it's see how he engages, and if he does, ask the question to see if he'll disclose where he's disposed of Susan's body.
The hardest part is not knowing where she is. That is the hardest.
It's difficult. It's horrible knowing that my sister's out there somewhere, and unless Alan talks, we'll probably never know where she is.
Edwards has always maintained his innocence throughout 2 rejected appeals. D.I. Luckman hopes this may lead the convicted killer to divulge new information.
He's exhausted all lines of appeal, so it wouldn't really make a difference as far as the conviction's concerned. I think the key element is that closure for Susan's family and allowing them to put her to rest.
As an individual for whom power is very important, this is the last piece of his power, his knowledge of where the body is. Everything tells me that he won't give up this information.
He does not get the news he hoped for this time.
So I attended HMP Wakefield, but unfortunately they had to cancel the legal visit at short notice. He had to go for a medical appointment. So disappointing, especially for Susan's family. In normal homicides where we have a body, there's no relationship whatsoever. However, with this, it's ongoing because Susan's body's still outstanding, Susan's still missing. And so it's really key for me to develop some sort of a relationship with him and some sort of rapport that hopefully when he's ready, he'll open up and tell us where Susan is, bring some closure to the family and lay her to rest.
2023 marks the 4-year anniversary of the death of Susan. Her family hope a renewed appeal to the public for information might finally lead them to Susan.
I think people from the outside, they see Susan as just another drug and alcohol taker. I really do believe that. But she was also a nice person.
It's all about trying to find Susan. And so call 101 or email through to the constabulary or go on the online reporting via the website and let us know no matter how insignificant you might feel it is, because it might be that final piece in the jigsaw for us.
If anyone knows anything, please let the police know, because at the end of the day, we just want our sister.
If you or someone you know has been affected by any of the issues raised in Sleeping with My Murderer, please go to channel5.com/helplines for information and support. Next, Ambulance Code Red.